This is a group of vicious death row prisoners, who have now each become kindergarten teachers, only because every child attending here has a powerful force behind them, and every day countless threats appear in front of these kids, so they need top-tier fighters to protect them. And this group of death row inmates struck a deal with the talent law department: as long as they guard these children, they can gain freedom. However, today an assassin broke through the kindergarten's bottleneck. As the killer pulled out a sniper rifle and aimed at one of the kids, he slowly exhaled. Once he pulled the trigger, he could get 100 million in reward. But at the next instant, after he squeezed the trigger, a teacher suddenly appeared out of nowhere and blocked the bullet with an iron shovel. Then the teacher's eyes were openly filled with killing intent, as she stared toward the shooter. Realizing he had underestimated these teachers, the killer hurried to pack up and leave, but it was already too late. An iron spade had already pinned into the wall right behind him. The man was now so terrified, he had no idea how, at such a long distance, she had reached him so fast. Thinking fast, he threw out a tear gas grenade and ran for the rooftop, but he clearly underestimated the girl's power. The girl wasn't affected at all. Instead, she kicked him more than 10 meters away, then pressed a pistol to his forehead. "Who sent you here? Say it, or I'll kill you." After all, he was a professional assassin. The man had no plan to reveal his employer. But just as his words ended, his mask slipped off. The girl's eyes widened at the sight, her gaze was icy, and her body gave off a dangerously attractive aura, absolutely her #1 dating type. And recalling today's horoscope, that said she might meet her destined partner, the killing intent in her eyes vanished instantly. When she heard him say, "Kill or spare at your will," the girl got so excited, she stammered, "Oh my God, even his voice is my favorite type, who else can understand this family?" So, under the man's stunned stare, she shyly asked a question, "Do you have a girlfriend?" After getting a no, the girl burst into tears of joy. Great, then she gushed on about how working as a teacher at the kindergarten left her no good chance encounters. Hearing this, even the man realized she'd fallen for him. To seize a slim chance, he pretended love at first sight. "Miss Rita, if you don't mind, please go out with me." Rita instantly blushed and covered her face. "How can you say that? We don't even know each other yet." But the man took the chance to charm her while searching for a chance to counterattack. "I think you're a very attractive woman, let's start getting to know each other from now on." Rita thought what he said made sense, so she eagerly asked him some questions, like, "How do you eat stew? What filling do you like in fried fish or chicken nuggets with extra lemon?" Finding out his habits matched hers exactly, she couldn't believe it, this had to be her destined one. Seeing this, the man smirked. As soon as he lowered the gun muzzle, he could instantly kill this love-struck fool. But right then Rita asked the final question, "What about the end credits of a movie?" Without thinking, the man confidently blurted out, "I never watch them, I just leave as soon as it ends." As the words left his mouth, the girl coldly pulled the trigger and blew his head off. "Why couldn't you just watch them?" Rita walked back to the kindergarten looking disappointed. This was the 5th attack she'd handled in her first week on the job. She had finally met a handsome guy, only to find he wasn't hers. Hearing the principal praise her, she shyly scratched her head. As expected of the nation's strongest killer, prisoner 999, codenamed Rita. "Although you're doing well, I still must remind you, this is a state-secret mission. As long as you keep the children safe for 1 year, you can regain your freedom. Conversely, if you ever think of running or harming the kids, I'll kill you without mercy." Facing the principal's threat, Rita didn't care at all. Yeah, got it, but could you introduce me to a good man after I finish the job?" "No way, I've been in the army forever and never had any romance." On hearing this, Rita fell to her knees in disappointment, shedding little pearls of tears. At that moment, a small boy ran over to comfort her. "Teacher, don't cry, here's a 4-leaf clover for you." Seeing this, she recalled her own tragic early life. She'd been raised by her foster father as a killing machine, working hard for him only to end up in prison. Like a wolf, she didn't want her energy to play out again on another child. It turned out every kid at this kindergarten had an extraordinary background. Without exception, they were children of elites from all walks of society, so assassins and kidnappers struck here constantly, and in the past many teachers had lost their lives. Thus, the government issued a secret mission offering a simple deal for prisoners to protect the children, forming this special group of teachers. But Rita didn't really care about freedom, her only wish was to find a handsome boyfriend. Meanwhile, after the organization received news of the failed hit, they handed this tough job to another professional killer. Upon hearing that the strongest killer's spade had fallen in such a place, the man scoffed, "It's just kidnapping a brat, why make it such a big deal?" After a round of disguise, he arrived at the kindergarten gate. Teacher Rita was especially happy today, because her blood-type reading put her at number 1 again, maybe today she'd meet her prince. After opening the door, an old man claimed he was a steward of the Edward family, needing to temporarily take away Miss Lexi. According to procedure, Rita had to check the school-issued parent ID, but with just one glance, she pulled out her pistol and aimed at the old man. "I knew something about your voice sounded off today." The old man explained, "So, ramen, where do you start eating?" Rita nervously swallowed. She warned herself inside to be generous, never be silly, even if opinions differ, she can still fall for the other, after all, that's what dating is. Although normally with ramen you either eat noodles first or drink soup first, she preferred a man who drank the soup first. The man rubbed his chin, seeming to think seriously, but actually planning to answer at random, then kill her when she dropped her guard. He said without hesitation he would first eat the char siu on the noodles, but the next second Rita still couldn't hold back. With one stroke she slashed his neck. She had calculated everything, but not that his answer would be this kind. Crying, she ran to find the principal for comfort. She hadn't expected that the man wasn't dead yet. He shakily aimed at Rita's back, but just then a bullet precisely hit his forehead. It turned out his colleague Doug had stepped in to finish him off. Although Doug was also a real handsome guy, he happened to be exactly the type she disliked, because he was a scam artist who specialized in cheating the old, the weak, women and children. Hey, talk to your senior with more respect. Even though Rita had perfectly dealt with all the thugs attacking the kindergarten, she still felt a little regret, because every killer who came had been a handsome man. The principal warned her, "Don't keep using the faces of enemies to satisfy your own desires. By the way, our male staff are pretty good too, like Doug, who's also in your dandelion class, he's handsome isn't he?" At these words Rita's face froze. "Heh, he might look good but with his character forget it." Rita was about to complain more, but Doug suddenly gave her a chop from behind. "I heard everything you little jerk shrimp, why do I get dumped for no reason when I'm not even here?" Realizing the situation was bad, Rita turned to slip away. She wanted nothing to do with this guy, yet every time he pretended deep affection to tease her and stole her wallet, peeking through her privacy. This made Rita want to shoot him every time, but since the two were teachers of the same class, the principal wanted them to get along and hopefully survive the year together and regain freedom. Doug didn't care at all, because for a long time he had managed on his own, never needing so-called partners. Meanwhile, as missions kept failing, the third hired killer didn't rush in brainlessly like the first two. This time he planned a steadier method to finish the job. They lay in wait outside the kindergarten for a chance. That day Doug left alone from the front gate after work. On the way he met a lost old lady. She had just asked him for directions when Doug immediately drew his gun and demanded, "Who sent you?" As the godfather of con men, Doug saw through her disguise at once, full of holes. Ashamed, the old lady admitted he had some skill, "But you don't understand the situation," she said, then snapped her fingers. Dozens of men in black appeared behind Doug, his scalp tingled. Hey, that's way too many. Meanwhile, Rita realized that when Doug took her wallet, he had taken all her cash. Enraged, she went to chase him, but only found a patch of blood on the ground. She instantly sensed something wrong, and indeed Doug had been taken to an abandoned factory. They targeted him to get kindergarten intel. Even beaten within an inch of his life, Doug refused to say a word. The killers were impatient, planning to give him one last chance before killing him. Doug hesitated. Even if he talked and they let him go, he'd be hunted by the principal for breaking the contract, but if he stayed silent he'd die now. His only hope was his talent. If he could escape their sight for 1 second, he could get away, but with so many there was no chance. Thinking that, he knew he'd probably end here today. Thinking of his life, it was pure garbage. Abandoned by his parents in the slums as a child, no one approached him, no one helped him, so he learned to rely only on himself, swindling to get money, finally earning a pair of silver bracelets. He hadn't expected to die still alone, how pathetic. Seeing Doug still not talk, a killer chambered around. Though knowing it was hopeless, Doug still hoped someone would save him. After a gunshot, he was surprised to be alive. It turned out a killer had been shot by none other than Rita, who tracked them down. But her first words stunned Doug. "By the way, are there any handsome guys among you?" Because today's reading again predicted she might meet her fated one, so she wanted to see if there were any handsome killers. But scanning around, she saw nothing but ugly mugs. Just then the boss behind the killers came out. Normally the boss should be tall and elegant. Rita's hopes rose, only for the boss to look like a comedian, zero handsome content, 2-bit scumbag. This made Rita go on a killing spree. After the boss died, Rita knelt in grief. "You're all so mean, polluting my eyes." Realizing what happened, the others moved to kill Rita to avenge their boss. Rita regretted there were no handsome guys for nothing. While darting gracefully, she failed to notice a killer on top of a crate. At the critical moment, Doug, who had slipped free, hit the man flying with a stool, because Doug had the power of 1 second unnoticed escape, and thanks to Rita drawing their fire last time he saved Rita, this time he saved himself. Now they were even. Next they had to wipe out the killers to remove the threat. Rita kindly warned Doug not to get killed, then they split up. Doug charged into the crowd without striking, making the killers think he was running, but as he passed them, he had all. Rita stayed excited throughout the class, and Doug happened to be playing the piano for the kids, and she wanted to step up and try too, and that instantly made Doug's little face turn red. Since yesterday, the two of them had been acting off, and he felt strange about Rita, especially when he saw her tiny hands and long eyelashes, making his heart race faster. Yet that fondness vanished the moment Rita played the piano, because her iron fist fingers literally smashed it, and Rita only explained she was too excited about the new coworker, and if the newcomer was a handsome guy, that would be perfect. But Doug advised Rita to focus on keeping herself alive, because he had joined a month ago while Rita only a week ago, and this kindergarten job was highly dangerous, and they were like consumables, one dies, another comes. Most of all, he kept feeling the principal was hiding something, and making this bunch of ex-cons perform state-level secret missions. Was it really just about protecting rich kids? Rita thought he was overthinking, and she only knew she had to protect the children. Then the doorbell suddenly rang, and Rita thought the new coworker had arrived, and rushed out and opened the door, and sure enough it was a long-haired handsome man, and with one glance Rita had already imagined the names of their children, and then asked her signature line, "Mr. Hart, may I ask from which end you start eating ramen?" Facing such a handsome man, even if he didn't share her habit of drinking the soup first, Rita could accept it, but Hart said he actually disliked ramen shops, because the floors were always sticky. Before he finished, Rita swung a punch, "So you don't eat ramen, huh?" and then realized she had just knocked out the new coworker in a fit of excitement, and hurried to apologize to the principal, but the principal said that man wasn't a new coworker at all, but likely an assassin, and told Rita to check his chest, where a handgun was hidden. Hearing that, Rita breathed a sigh of relief, and the principal reminded her to finish him off just in case, but a grenade dropped from the air with a violent blast, and Rita was blown up. "Leave the finishing blow to me, I'm Hana, the new teacher, nice to meet you." As a result, on her first day she was strung up by the principal for blowing up the kindergarten gate. "What is wrong with your nerves? Lucky no one got hurt, or I'd kill you first, and why did you come alone? Where's the escort vehicle?" Hana explained she'd been ambushed on the way, and everyone else was dead. "I see, you've had it rough, but not fleeing is commendable." Unexpectedly, on her second day Hana became popular with the kids, making Doug ask Rita if she felt upset seeing her limelight stolen. Rita thought a bit and said not at all, because she only cared about handsome guys and nothing else. Doug was speechless, but reminded Rita not to get too close, because most newcomers died quickly, some at enemy hands for lacking skill, some at the principal's for snooping. Either way they didn't last long, so don't sink into despair after bonding. But Rita never intended to bond, she only had eyes for handsome men. Then a child pulled a photo from Hana, and Rita wanted to scold him for taking things, but on seeing it she was shocked to find Hana with a handsome man, and immediately asked if he was Hana's boyfriend, and she explained it was her brother. Smitten with the handsome guy, Rita instantly declared from today Hana was her best sister and could come to her for any trouble. Not far away, Doug cursed her for ignoring his warning, but Rita insisted, "No way, I'm absolutely not befriending Hana because of her brother." Just as Hana was about to speak, a helicopter appeared nearby, and they quickly shielded the kids. "Are you kidding? Now they're using a helicopter." Rita was about to call the principal, but Hana stopped her, and in their stunned gaze she pulled several grenade pins and swung a baseball bat a few times, launching the grenades like rockets straight into the helicopter. Seeing this, Doug was shocked, for he'd heard a rumor about a certain assassin family's youngest daughter, a top killer using bat and bombs, leaving ruins wherever she went. "You must be Hana Bradley." Hana nodded, then looked at Rita. "Senior, you just said I could come to you for anything, was that true?" Rita said of course. Hearing that, Hana begged her to help rescue her brother. Since it was about a handsome guy, Rita agreed at once, but Doug cut her off. "This isn't so simple, it's clearly a trap. Also, all of us have tracking chips in our necks under 24-hour surveillance and instant execution if we leave the area. Only during fights are we free to move." For personal reasons, the principal would never allow it. But the principal, who had appeared unnoticed, overheard, and though looking angry still approved their plan, because if not resolved Hana would keep being hunted and endanger the kindergarten, so since the three were classmates, they should handle it themselves, but within 3 hours and back before dismissal. Doug hadn't even reacted when he was pushed out with them. Soon they reached an abandoned port, and Doug wanted to ask the usual, "Do we have a plan?" since with Hana their group now had 2 killers, but Rita simply said, "Doug, don't call me by killer code names, just call me by my name," and such intimacy made Doug freeze and realize he was doomed, because he truly felt indescribable feelings for Rita. Just then a glint appeared in their view, and Rita and Doug fired back at the ambushers. After finishing, 2 more killers appeared, and worst of all Hana the second killer was gone. She was secretly observing them, and had to admit Rita, when he climbed out of the water, he had even lost his handgun, and facing the high-standing Hana, Doug showed no sign of betrayal, which in the kindergarten was a serious breach of contract, and you would still end up hunted to death by the principal. But Hana had long thought of a countermeasure and said, "This was no problem at all, I'll just report to the principal that the 2 seniors were killed by the enemy. After all, corpses don't talk, and as a con artist you shouldn't have a chance to beat me." "That's not certain." Doug then grabbed the sand on the ground and threw it into her face, but Hana struck him down with one swing. "Don't make futile struggles." Yet at that moment, Doug was holding his smoke bomb, and with a puff of smoke, he escaped successfully, but as he ran he stopped, because he thought Rita might still be alive, and he couldn't just leave her, but another voice in his head stopped him, "Didn't you agree not to get too close to newcomers?" In the end, he still chose to return to the ruins, but shouting loudly didn't find Rita, instead it drew nearby shout rap. "You're really stupid, having escaped, why come back to die?" But Doug's answer startled him, "He's my only friend." Remembering his own brother had said the same words, just as he froze, an old man appeared out of nowhere and raised his gun, shooting Doug. The man was Hana's father, making such a big scene. "Where's Rita?" "Don't worry, I've dealt with her." "What about my brother, is he safe?" The father ordered them to bring out her brother, and as Hana was untying him, her father suddenly shot from behind, "You think you can settle accounts like this, fool? In a killer family there's no credit, how can you believe a verbal promise? Failures only have a dead end," and he was about to finish them. But just then, a gunshot rang out, and everyone was shocked to see a figure walk out from the ruins, and they all aimed their weapons. "Who are you?" "I'm the partner of handsome men around the world." It turned out to be Rita, who had been covered by the explosion earlier, and Hana never expected Rita to survive a storm of grenades, until she saw the corpses and understood Rita had hidden among the bodies she just killed to escape the blast. Rita didn't care at all, whether using a dead right foot or a corpse as a blanket, as long as she lived it wasn't filth, and next was counterattack time. Hana's father was truly frightened now, because decades ago Rita had left him with deep psychological trauma, then called the witch at only 10 years old. She had in their fight left an indelible scar on his face, making him not dare come to the island for decades, until he used Hana to lure this time, and now he found his nightmare still alive. In her freed witch form, Rita had already cleared the killers, leaving only Hana's father. But a cough sounded, and Rita found it was the badly wounded Doug still alive, making her so happy she'd thought such a weak Doug must be dead. Doug was touched but instantly depressed. How come that doesn't sound like a compliment? And when Rita turned back, Hana's father had vanished without a trace. As for the traitor Hana, by rights she should report to the principal and Hana would be executed and her brother locked up, but Rita suddenly decided to keep it secret, since no one else knew. Doug felt this was bad. Sure enough, Rita in one stride rushed to Hana's brother asking if they could be friends. This girl, when smitten with a handsome man, had nothing else in her head. Hana looked at Doug a bit guilty because she had just shot him and didn't know if he'd agree with Rita, but surprisingly Doug didn't mind, which made Hana, who had never been cared about by anyone but her brother, burst into tears and sincerely apologized to Rita and Doug. Yet just then, the sound of a helicopter rose. Hana's father hadn't fled but returned flying back. Doug immediately asked Hana if she could, like before, hit grenades with her bat, but she said her arm was shot and she couldn't do it now. Only Rita stayed calm, telling Hana to hand her the bombs, and she took them and circled alone. To draw her father's attention, Hana also vented decades of killer repression, and while the father was dazed, Rita had already leapt onto a nearby building and then straight at the helicopter, and just as she was about to grab its strut, Hana's father dodged so she missed, but she had already hung a whole bag of grenades on the aircraft. As she fell, Rita shouted, "Senior Doug," and Doug instantly understood, aiming his gun at the bombs on the helicopter, and as Rita plunged into the sea, the helicopter was hit and exploded. The matter was finally solved, and Hana's brother prepared to say goodbye to his sister he had finally met, because he still decided to turn himself in and stop fleeing. In the past, as a family assassin, his hands were full of blood, and he had comforted himself as forced, but during a year of being hunted by his father, he realized he'd been avoiding reality, so he chose prison to atone for his sins. As for Hana, he had learned of his sister's secret mission becoming a kindergarten teacher, so he believed she would not kill more innocents but protect more children, and at that moment Doug happened to pull Rita out of the sea, and since his sister now had new companions, he wouldn't worry about her anymore. Seeing the principal's 3-hour time nearly up, Doug urged everyone to hurry back, but walking too fast, Rita hadn't gotten Hana's brother's phone number, feeling she'd lost out, but an accident was about to happen. Because of her injury, Hana had been walking slowly, and after the gunfight, a nearby container was about to collapse, and seeing Hana too hurt to react at the critical moment, Doug risked his life to pull Hana out of the falling debris. If Hana died now it would be a huge loss, he thought. She must repay this in the coming decades, so saving Hana now was an investment in the future. When they returned, they were covered in wounds, but the principal told them there was a miracle doctor in the kindergarten, so they went there to be healed. Rita had never heard of a school infirmary and fantasized whether the doctor would be handsome, but opening the door she saw a burly man holding an iron axe, scaring them, looking more like a butcher than a doctor, and they quickly tried to make excuses to leave, but the big man only threw down his axe, forcing them back, and in a flash appeared behind them, confirming, 3 wounded must be treated, and then lifting one in each hand and one in his mouth, dragged them back to the clinic. Unexpectedly, under clean, efficient treatment, Rita and the others were perfectly healed, and then the big man introduced himself. When she wondered if she had some incurable disease, Gordon was left speechless. "Girl, you're in love." But before he finished speaking, someone suddenly pushed the door open with a gun, and without saying a word, started shooting at Hana. Both Rita and Doug rushed over when they heard the noise, but the man said about Hana's chest tightness, he knew the reason. Simply put, it was just a cold. Doug immediately recognized him as the kindergarten teacher Peck, who was said to be a former police officer imprisoned after killing his superior. Being a swindler, Doug felt he couldn't deal with Peck. Only pretty boy-minded Rita was thrilled that the kindergarten had a handsome guy, even drawing her gun, wanting a duel with Peck to flirt. But with one shot, Rita's gun was knocked away. This was Peck's subconscious reaction upon seeing Rita holding a gun. But when Peck tried to calm Rita, his own gun was knocked away, and the attacker was Rita, not with a gun, but by throwing a thermometer. Rita was speechless. Wasn't it Peck who shot first? Peck frowned, feeling Rita's pressure, and Rita didn't plan to stop. Peck didn't seem to realize his mistake. She intended to help him face reality. In an instant, glass shattered, Rita grabbed a scale and swung, but Peck dodged. Peck took the chance to grab Rita, saying, "Young," and pinned her to the ground, but Rita reversed and pinned Peck down. At that moment, the fallen gun lay beside them, and they both grabbed it, holding each other in a weird ground pose. Love struck, Rita only felt excited, but Doug watching got anxious and kicked Peck away. Peck tried to speak, but Gordon cut him off, asking why he opened fire without reason. Peck first apologized, then said it was an accident, mainly blaming Gordon. Gordon was stunned. Peck explained that from the romance shoujo manga he was reading, he'd seen that unrequited love was the most interesting stage, and he also saw that Hana seemed to have that toward Doug. To keep observing and avoid losing that interesting state, he interrupted Gordon's explanation to Hana. Though he hoped for a love triangle, in reality, looking at simple Rita, he thought it impossible. At this point, Doug blocked Peck's gaze at Rita and asked why this guy, obsessed with girls' comics, kept staring at his back. Peck immediately threw Doug down. Doug had been a playboy, long annoying pure love warrior Peck, and now insulted his manga, making Peck furious. But he was curious. Before, Doug never broke down. Why did a few glances at Rita set him off? Could it be he liked Rita? Hearing this, Doug instantly had a, "I don't know, stop saying that," face. With rich shoujo manga experience, Peck was shocked. In romance comics, once someone shows that tsundere expression, it means he's lying. Meaning the love triangle exists, but as a spicier one-sided triangle, and in this situation, Peck only thought it was great. That day, the three of Dandelion class were feeding the kids when suddenly a group of killers arrived at the kindergarten, and they were all handsome ninja troops, making Rita ecstatically swear she'd find her true love among them. It turned into a Q&A, but those guys were either scalpers selling tickets or weirdos who liked honey with eggs. Until she emptied her magazine, the handsome ninja troop was wiped out, and she still hadn't found true love. Watching Rita take out a whole group alone, Peck reminded Doug that though Rita was strong, if she fought alone without teammates, she could only handle small-time killers. If someday a real top killer appeared, it would be Rita's death. They didn't know that a true top killer, Natasha, had set her sights on Rita. That day, while Rita was still playing with the kids, someone rang the doorbell. At first, she thought it was a guardian coming to pick up a child, but the person eagerly grabbed her hand, saying he was her fan, and also an invincible lonely killer. This time, he came to find an unbreakable toy. So the two instantly drew guns. Confirming it was an assassin attack, Doug and the others quickly moved the children to safety, only to find 3 missing, so they had to search outside. At that moment, Hana told Doug, after seeing that killer's eyes, for some reason she had a bad feeling, like when she'd seen Rita's witch form. Thinking of how cruel witch Rita was, Doug instantly felt something was wrong. Meanwhile, the battle was raging. Natasha, worthy of a top killer, held her own even against Rita, but the next second she suddenly stepped back, saying it was totally different from what she'd imagined. She'd thought the legendary witch would be powerful, but now it didn't meet her expectations. Rita explained that she wasn't a witch anymore and didn't want to be one. Now she was just a kindergarten teacher. Natasha smiled faintly, saying, "No matter what, people's nature doesn't change." When she was a killer, she'd heard of Rita's witch form and believed that was her true self. Since Rita had forgotten her real face, he'd help her remember. In an instant, the fight resumed. Rita was kicked into the rubble, but then 3 children suddenly crawled out from behind the ruins, the same ones hiding during hide-and-seek, scaring Rita, who hurriedly grabbed them to move to safety. Natasha then had an idea. Since Rita was now a kindergarten teacher, if she killed these little ones, would Rita get mad and turn into a witch? Hearing this, Rita was stunned. To be safe, she could only choose to run, but since she was carrying children, she was about to be caught. At this critical moment, Doug appeared, and at the same time, Hana used her baseball bat to knock a bomb toward Natasha. Played to pieces, until she was beaten to the ground, Natasha's disbelief reached its peak, especially when she saw that in Rita's eyes, about to finish her, there was even a trace of pity. Natasha completely broke down. She had thought Rita was the same kind of person as herself, someone who could only live by killing. Why would someone like that, after defeating her, not be happy but show pity? This shook her values, and she asked Rita, if killers like them could not find life's meaning through eliminating each other, then what was the meaning of living? Rita explained, in the end, they were just criminals, how could they so easily find happiness? Temptation was life's meaning, but even in hell, her biggest wish was to stay alive, because living meant having hope to be loved by someone. So, all that talk of life and meaning was just wanting to be loved anyway. Life's flickering memories flashed through Natasha's mind. Indeed, what she wanted wasn't an unbreakable toy, she only wanted someone to stay by her side as a friend. But now, understanding this seemed too late. Yet, in her final moments, a warm hand held Natasha's. It was Rita, because she also saw that Natasha was the same kind of person she had been. If they had met in the past, maybe they would have become friends, and then, like now, taught in a kindergarten. Although the job was sometimes tiring, once things calmed down, it still felt happy. Hearing Rita's words, Natasha imagined that future, maybe it really was a good idea. In the end, Natasha closed her eyes. When Rita turned back, the kindergarten was already reduced to rubble. Rita collapsed from exhaustion. What worried her more than the fatigue was that she had released the witch persona again. After struggling to suppress that past, she feared, if this went on, one day she would return to that lonely state. Just then, she heard someone calling her name. Appearing before Rita were Doug and Hana. Rita, startled, quickly stood up, asking why they hadn't taken shelter. Doug explained, Rita, you hate being alone, don't you? So how could they abandon a comrade and let her fight alone? In an instant, something touched her heart, and tears fell uncontrollably. This was when Hana found a photo on Natasha's body, seeming to be the target of this attack. At that moment, the principal returned from outside, and Hana simply handed the photo over. Unexpectedly, the principal's face darkened. Finally, it had come. Just then, a little girl blowing a whistle appeared on campus. Seeing this, Doug was shocked. In theory, he should know every child in the kindergarten, but he had never seen this child before. The principal quickly picked her up, because this child was the target of the assassins, Layla, and also